Okay, so now it's time to share my starting 11 for the game against Germany. Of course, this is what I am seeing. What I look with this kind of blog is for you to comment. We'll start the comment section when we complete this video. But it's just an idea that I have. It might be totally wrong, and I think it will create debate a little bit of why I decided to go with this 11. When I go into detail with this 11, I want you to keep in mind that what I want is to see this as the ideal situation. We don't know if it will be the ideal situation, but this is my 11 against Germany, and I'll explain why. So here you have it. The starting 11 includes Ochoa and goal, Edson as a right back, Salcedo as a center back, right center back, Moreno as left center back, Layun as the left back, Rafa Marquez situating himself as a holding midfielder, Jonathan Dos Santos on the right, Guardado on the left. Right in front of those three will be Hector Herrera, and on top, Carlos Vela and Chicharito Hernandez. So the first question that you're going to be saying, well, why didn't he start Chucky Lozano? Why, in Naiv's mind, he leaves Chucky on the bench? It's probably one of the craziest things to do. But what I see here, or what I kind of envision, is that what you want is an overpopulated midfield against Germany. I think looking at it from the perspective from Germany, they're going to be kind of surprised that Chucky's on the bench. Chucky all of a sudden being on the bench. By being on the bench, he becomes the first option off the bench, depending on the situation in the second half. What I see here is the influence of Hector Herrera being more up front than he has ever been for the most part in this process with Osorio. It's a surprise factor to see Herrera so in front of the midfielders. But when you have Jonathan on the right, when you have Marquez as a holding midfielder, and this is an ideal Marquez. I think Marquez, in my opinion, right now for many of y'all, is going to be, he shouldn't start. And Osorio last night kind of said a little bit under the lines that Marquez becomes a good option off the bench, especially when you're trying to find balance in the 11 and crucial states of the match. But what happens here with this 11, though, leaving Chucky on the bench makes him into a great option off the bench. And the reason I decided not to put, for example, Chucky and Chicharito is because I feel that Vela and Chicharo make a tandem that goes far beyond just being excellent players. It goes far beyond anything that could be interpreted. We're talking about a duo that has been playing forever together. In the Chivas youth ranks, they played together at some point. And that's why at the end I go with Vela Chicharito. One of the best goals scored in this process was a play between Vela and Chicharo against Costa Rica and Estadio Azteca. I think many of you will remember that goal, and I think that is at the end why I decided to go with those two up top. Herrera's going to be playing around, basically becomes kind of like a 10 midfielder. Really, everything is set together for Herrera to be another scoring option, especially with his shots out of the box, outside the box, and inside the box. He becomes another target in the center, especially when a player like Layun, as you can see in the 11 here, I put Layun as a player that can is more up front, is more forward. He has to land some crosses into the box, has to be a definitive surprise factor when making attacks on the left. His shot outside the box will also be critical here in this game against Germany, and that's why Layun, as you can see, is more forward. And then I put Edson a little bit, becomes kind of a center back. I don't think Edson's going to move that much up against Germany. Of course, Edson is not completely in the final list, and we have to wait there. But as you can see there, Edson stays a little bit back, and that allows a little bit Layun to move up. Jonathan Dos Santos has been training as a right back in the last days over there with the national team, and it has been reported. Actually, Jonathan with Barca, there came an option that he could have been a Sergio Roberto type of player. Sergio Roberto is a central midfielder. He started as a central midfielder, but he evolved into a right back. Well, Jonathan was in that process with Barca, but at the end the patience died off Jonathan wasn't playing with Barca, so that's why he moved to Villarreal. And at the end of Villarreal, in a 4-4-2 formation, he played as a right midfielder, really tight to the wing, and be having the ability to move back and support the defense was something that did stand out with someone like Jonathan Dos Santos. So that's why Jonathan Dos Santos, as you can see here, is really important what he will do in that area, that right side area, kind of the same as what will Guardado do. Guardado does become really important in the distribution of the ball, but also in supporting Layun when Layun moves up. It's a midfield that you have a possession-based mentality, but at the same time, I think the positioning of the players will actually determine the options, or whether they're low or high, of Mexico getting a result against Germany. Without Araujo, I think Carlos Salcedo should play as a center back in the whole World Cup. I don't see Salcedo being a right back option unless there's no other possible option. Maybe Reyes is not available, whatnot. But Reyes will be that player, in my opinion, depending on his health here, that could potentially be in this lineup. I still, the Rafa question is a serious question mark. I think a lot of people are going to be like, Naib is crazy for putting Rafa as a starter, and that could kind of change in the next couple of days. You can say that someone like Edson might get the shot against Germany, and it's going to be a Andres Guardado 2.0 kind of case like Ricardo Lavolpe did. But it is there. It is a possibility, and I think Edson could play in Rafa's role, and then Reyes would be the player, in my opinion, that would play in Edson's role on this 11 that we see. So we're switching out Rafa, and we put in Edson, and then down there we put Reyes instead of Edson. But it could be Reyes moves to the center, Salcedo moves to the right, which is something that Salcedo has done in this process a lot of times. So it is a moving of pieces, but the possibility is there that to play this game without Rafa Marquez. But as I say, Carlos Salcedo, I think, does become a serious center back option because he can play you as a right center back and a left center back, as we saw in the last friendlies that El Tri has played. Without Molina, it kind of changes this because a lot of analysts or that I follow would suggest that Molina could play in that role that Rafa is going to play here, because he's a natural defensive midfielder. He knows what should happen in those kind of situations. And for example, someone like Edson is still kind of young and starting and maybe doesn't know those roles that quite well. But in my opinion, like I've said many times, written many times, I feel that someone like Edson Alvarez is a player that can evolve into a great defensive midfielder. I mean, but starting against Germany is playing with fire. But that's a possibility that Osorio and his coaching staff might be contemplating. Why Achache so up front? I mean, I'm one of the guys that have said many times that I just think that Achache, putting him back, for example, in the place where Rafa's in this 11, it takes so much away from Hector Herrera. It kind of ties them down, and I think what we need with Hector Herrera is to be, a bullet, a surprise factor. I think if Germany sees Achache playing in that kind of number 10 role, being supported by a cast of Jonathan Dos Santos and Andres Guardado, I think it does surprise a little bit Germany. It is kind of, that's why you kind of sacrifice a little bit not having Chucky in the 11, is to have Herrera a little bit moving up front. I think he's ready for it. I think we've seen it in many games with Porto. What he did against Benfica proves how effective Hector Herrera can be when he comes as a surprise attacker. When he comes and sees those spaces and shoots outside the box, Herrera can be one of the best in the game. And I think that is why I put Achache so up front and see him as an option there. Layun's versatility will be crucial. He might start as left back in this game and might end as another midfielder, where Jonah is situating. Layun can play that role perfectly, even where Guardado's at, so that puts into question, could potentially Gallardo step up in this game in the second half just to add fresh legs and good speed, especially in the marking at the end of the match. Chucky is a definite sub option. Tecatito Corona becomes another definite sub option. Raul Jimenez as well, depending on the necessities of the team. So when you think about Osorio and how he has sort of coached his team, a lot of people assume that against Denmark, Osorio is going to put something really similar to what he's going to put against Germany. I mean, that's what everyone's saying in Mexico. And I think it's not going to be the case. We might see 7 to 8 players that are technically in the 11 playing that match. But we're not completely sure how evident it will be or how similar the lineup against Denmark will be against Germany. I feel that there will be a surprise factor against Germany. And the main surprise factor that I see coming is that of HH being so upfront with the supporting cast of Jonah and Guardado. I mean, it doesn't get better than that when you have players like Guardado and Jonathan who have been, sensational midfielders, I would say, in La Liga, being behind and having someone like Rafa Marquez there, or it could be Edson, like I said a couple of minutes ago, that it gives Mexico that possibility of surprise. Vela, every shot that he'll have will be important. Every shot that Chicharito might get will be important. This is the game. I think in itself, a lot of people might look at this like a 4-4-2, or I still see it kind of like a 4-3-3, but a little bit the diamond shape made up by one of the attackers, which would be HH. I mean, it does look kind of like a diamond, I'm not gonna lie, but it plays with the spaces that Germany might leave. With Kimmich going up, who is someone that likes going up, and putting in discomfort or confusing a little bit the expectations from Germany. I think that's what Joaquim Lowe is a bit concerned with Mexico. It's the first game. Mexico won't have that much to lose, in my opinion. Playing against the defending world champion, the world champion has to give a good performance, showing solidarity, showing the intentions to win it again. And that puts Mexico in this position of, we can surprise Germany with this lineup. Like I said at the beginning of this one, make sure to subscribe to this video. Make sure to comment, because I want to see your possible 11. And I know that many 11s against Germany will include Chucky Lozano. And I'm actually taking him out of this picture. But it is this idea to have some way or another a surprise factor. We already heard Osorio said a couple of days ago that there's like 4 or 5, I think the number was 4 of players that right now he doesn't have available, but he had them available a couple of months ago in this game against Germany. The 11 was kind of already composed, and the complexion of it was pretty, made up already. But the injuries of Araujo was probably going to play in that position where I set up Salcedo, for example, and Salcedo was going to play where I put Edson. And in the middle, we technically don't know who exactly he's thinking about. He's probably still thinking about Rafa, but like I said, we don't know exactly what Rafa state is in. The thing here with Rafa is, if you're gonna take him to the World Cup, he is gonna play. I don't see Rafa being just as another player coach, or you taking him because you want to give him the 5th World Cup. I think if Rafa's going, you should put him to the test in this match against Germany, whether that's in the first half or the second half. By the looks of it, it looks like Osorio's thinking about the second half, but why not give it a shot in the first 45 minutes? And the word I think in Spanish that works really well with Rafa is arroparlo bien, to sort of support him right. And that's why I see Jonathan so important in Guardado. And in the back, you have someone like Edson, Salcedo, and Moreno. And right there in the middle, kind of like a quarterback, is Rafa Marquez. I mean, I know I'm kind of going to American football, but that's what Rafa does for you right now. At his age, is sending those passes to, Herrera, to Jonathan if he moves forward, Layun also moving forward, Vela and Chichero. So that is my 11 for the game against Germany. A lot can change because we don't know exactly who's still in the final list and who's not. And define really the picture of it. So that is my point here for Resortera Away. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment, and put your lineup that you see Mexico using against Germany. So thank you for watching as always, and we'll try to keep growing this project.